entropy.
That's a strange word.
It's a fancy word I learned in school.
Falls apart.
Tell me about what you know about entropy.
The law of entropy is going to fall apart.
It's the tendency of something that is ordered to tend towards chaos. Anything left alone would go towards chaos. Anything not kept up with would go towards chaos. If you would have watched my room as I grew up as a boy, chaos. I never threw a shirt that folded itself. Chaos.
Yes.
Everything. Why doesn't it just order itself? Entropy. Matter of fact, this concept is so strong that one of the arguments for the existence of God is intelligent design.
Yes.
There's many arguments you could approach someone who doesn't believe, but one is intelligent design. What does intelligent design suggest?
There's a creator. There's a designer.
But based on what facts?
Everything deteriorates.
But there is some design. When I approach a certain work, there's a way I know this just didn't happen. That's the approach of an intelligent design. If I'm walking through the forest somewhere and I see rocks scattered everywhere, nothing may catch my attention. But if I see 7 rocks stacked on top of each other, I pause. Something's different here. As you look at the pattern of a leaf, as you look at the cell of a man, you start to see order. And it starts to create the case of intelligent design. Psalms 97 talks about the heavens declare his righteousness. How? Haven't you not seen and noticed? You thought this stuff just got here?
Everything.
What's that?
There's an order in everything.
In everything.
I think the biggest one single thing in his creation that just totally blows me away, that just totally amazes me, is the peacock.
Didn't see that coming.
That animal, he is something else. And if you look at his feathers, he's got eyes. He's got eyes there. He's awesome.
Yeah. Intelligent design suggests that there's an intelligent designer. This didn't just happen. Now, if you don't understand the design, you will make the mistake that I made when I was younger. And a lot of young people or those who are ignorant do. And you start to say, that's weird. That's stupid. That's dumb. Why? Because that makes no sense. I almost hurt myself because I've done things that didn't make sense to me. I was trying to rewire some cables. That little outer piece that goes around the cables, not necessary. Because they got other wires, they got coating in the wires on the inside. So what they got the big one on the outside for?
I see this one coming.
So that was necessary. I think how wise of me to have recognized such a silly flaw. Put this extra stuff around here. So as I go to doing my splicing and such, and I later research, oh, there's a purpose for that. It helps with insulation. It helps with many other things. My life has still been saved due to my ignorance. As we grow older, we become more knowledgeable to catch up with the intelligent designer. We may not understand that he created what he's created for an aesthetic purpose, or he has a function for it. But just because I don't understand the function for what he created doesn't make it dumb. doesn't make it silly. So I have to pause and say, why is it here? Many times I've cast off things because I'm like, what's that all about? I don't know, but I trust the designer. I say that as we enter into the book of Numbers. And we get a long list of something that doesn't seem as valuable. Some of the things I see, but some of the things, I must be honest, I'm blind to. And for a long time when I read Numbers, I've been blinded by, what's that all about? That number? Why are you doing this and that? And there's so many pieces to jump on here to think about, what is this here for? I want to look at one particularly with the Levites. There's something that was in here that I hadn't seen before a couple years ago that I just didn't know. But I look at the way he ordered the Levites. I say this a lot, but I don't know your personality, but sometimes I scoff and I think, why are you getting so into that? That numbers and they got to do this. Just tell me the idea. He says, no, I'm a God of order. I'm a God of clarity. So as we look at the Levites, we find out what their roles are. We learn there's a function here. And in looking at their function, I want to use these next few minutes to understand how Yahweh might be suggesting that we also have a function and the purpose in a way that maybe we haven't looked at before. In verse 3, it says, and Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, bring the tribe of Levi near and set them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister to him. So we see their purpose, that they may minister to him. They shall keep guard over him and over the whole congregation before the tent of meeting as they minister at the tabernacle. They shall guard all the furnishings of the tent of meeting and guard over the people of Israel as they minister at the tabernacle. I love it. Yahweh has a purpose for these Levites. You might not think it's great. It may not seem significant. He says, but I have a specific role for them. Why were these Levites so necessary?
They're the secret service.
They weren't the not so secret service. They were the bodyguards of their time, guarding the way, the furnishings, the word.
The National Guard. They were a National Guard.
Yet, ironically, Yahweh chose the tribe of Yehuda, Judah, to guard and keep his Torah as they were scattered into the nations.
Yeah, right. Yeah. My question I wonder today is, does it matter? Why Judah? Why Levi? Why this one? Why that one? Why? And we know some of the story as far as why Levites were chosen, but I look at the heart of God and how he's setting these things up. Why was it necessary that he picked the Levites? And this part I thought was interesting as we read further. And it wasn't just that they had a general task here of guarding the whole congregation or the furnishings and ministering for Aaron. They had a more specific role too. In verse 49, according to the commandment of Yahweh through Moses, they were listed, each one with his task of serving or carrying. They had even further specialization. They weren't just generalists. They weren't just like, hey, all the Levites, y'all do this. There was another sub hierarchy here that says there's some more to be said. There's some more work to be done. Each one has his own task of serving. Why were they specialized as such? What am I referring to?
Well, they each had specific tasks, and there's more than one task, more than one clan.
Like what kind of tasks am I referring to? That they were further specialized into, that they weren't just Levites.
Moving the tabernacle?
Yeah.
That's a big operation.
Yeah.
Requires a lot of coordination.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, by having this division of labor and assigned duties, nothing went undone or got mixed up. There was no fighting over this or that because everyone had their specific task to do.
Yeah.
It was efficient.
Yeah. So you start to see the intelligent designer, and you think about any organization. We can't all do customer service. We can't all be salespeople. You think about an organism. Organism is composed of many organs, made up by many different tissues, made up of many specialized cells. And why? To achieve a common goal. It all has one purpose in mind. And I believe that we see this design throughout nature and throughout everything in his creation because he has a purpose. There was further breaking down. You got the high priest. What was his job? He had many things, but I highlight a few here. Cover the Holy of Holies and anything in regards to them. The Kohathites, they had the ark, the table, the lampstands, the altars, the vessels. The Gershonites, the tabernacle, the tent with its covering, the screen and the entrance of the tent of meeting. The Merarites, the frames of the tabernacle, the bars, the pillars. They all had their respective duties that they needed to carry out. This was in my head for a long time. We all follow Torah. All the instructions, we follow Torah. We use that as our guide. But I am not responsible for all of it. I can only do one part. I can't hold up the part that says for women because I'm not a woman. So I actually can't keep all of Torah. Only that one as opposed to me. That applies for me. But I could break it down even further. If you look over here for the female, if you're a woman versus a girl, you might have different expectations. The girl could not uphold that which was for a woman or for a male because that didn't apply to her. She only could do that piece. What if we can break it down further and say married and unmarried? There was different expectations, statutes, laws, and so on and so forth. And we could go all the way down to the individual. I put a couple names here. There was things that Ruth would be told that had no bearing on Elizabeth. There were things Elizabeth would be told that had nothing to do with what Ruth did. So while everyone's under Torah, there's parts of it in pieces that we're responsible for, just like we see with the Levites. We're all men. No, but you don't follow the Levitical commands. That's for the Levites. You don't follow the Merarites. That's for what they do. But there's things that if Ruth did not do, and God told Ruth to do, she would be held accountable for. But Elizabeth would not. Same thing for the males, man and boy. We can take the man, divide into high priest and Levite. There's some for the high priest, that's not for the Levite and so forth, and we can continue breaking down. All this to say this. There is a certain Torah that is just for you. Man, I'm going to just let that sit for a second. That's a new thing, or maybe not. We're all to follow Torah. But did you know that there's a Torah with your name on it? As a woman? No, not just as a woman. As a married woman, as a widow, as a unmarried, as a girl, as a, what is your name? You have a Torah, you have instruction. And if you decided, actually I'll pull it up in a second. Exodus 3:10. Where do I get this from? Here's some examples. We see Moses, who was told, "Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." Moses was given a command from God that I don't see in the Torah. What if Moses says, "No, I'm not doing it"?
He tried.
He was trying.
He tried.
He was being nice about it. He had a lot of good reasons.
You need to ask Jonah.
Jonah's coming up. I guess he didn't get that story.
Of course, Moses, God made him go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down that mountain.
Yeah. Does that mean I got to go up and down and up and down and up and down the mountain?
I'm 80.
I just think it's interesting because often when I came into the faith, I saw commands. Obey the commands, as we should. But when we start to look closer, we realize that there are commandments that he's speaking directly to you. Well, I didn't see that in the Bible. No, it's not. You're not going to see that verse. You're going to hear the Spirit say, it's time to go. And this is one of them. You see in Gideon, go in the might you have and save Israel. That ain't God. I don't see that in the Bible. No, I'm talking to you. You go. How many times have I justified not doing something because I'm like, I don't know that scripture. I'm telling you to go. God is speaking. Noah. It's not a command to everyone. Make yourself an ark. Yeah.
Kind of like Gideon saying, it's not my job.
Man, you took one of my points.
Oh, sorry.
Now, I love when that happens. But that is actually one of the reasons I talk about later for why I may want to opt out. That's not my job. You mean it wasn't your job until I just told you. And I think this takes a little bit more maturity because when you come into the faith, you should be learning the scriptures, learning what Torah says, the 10 commandments and all such. But as we mature, we need to open our minds and say, I wonder what he's saying to me. Well, nobody else is doing that. The preacher in the front didn't tell me to do anything. Our group isn't doing it. He says, I'm not talking to them, Noah. I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to them, Moses. I'm talking to you. Moses had a lot of ideas for what he should do. To get somebody else. He told Abram, get out of your country. Does that mean they got to leave? No, I was talking to Abram. Get out of your country, from your family and your father's house, to a land that I will show you. And you remember this calling of Samuel when he was asleep. He had a message just for Samuel. These things can happen in your life, and he's nudging you and says, I have a message for you. Yes. Just like I've called the Levites to a certain law, I've called the Merarites and the Gershonites to say, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to make it specific for this is what you're going to be doing. I like this one. We've read this. See, I've called by name Bezaleel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability, intelligence, knowledge, all craftsmanship. He says, I've given this to you so that you can do a certain work. Dare you say no? Nah, that's not what I've seen. And then, of course, Oholiab, the same thing. I've given him ability. Now, Yahweh said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul? And this is him appointing David. For I have provided myself a king among his sons. He has something for David. Yeah.
Back to that other one where God gave Bezaleel such awesome craftsmanship and knowledge and all of this. We're given the Shabbat. And look at how many people that say, don't want it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that's before we even dial down to the specific. That's just way up there. Just like.
This is one fits all.
Right.
But it's a scenario where he told us, he gave it, I don't want it. It's really, it's just not going to work out well.
Right. It's not going to work out well. And this lesson, to be honest, I'm calling the mature. Because you have to be past already, okay, I know to obey. This is the written black and white. It's easy to see what I'm supposed to do here. If you're struggling with that, this is going to be tough. David, he's called. Jonah, we just talked about. Now the word of Yahweh came to Jonah, the son of And Matei saying, arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it. That's a command. That's not a suggestion. Yahweh is in the business of speaking specifically to men and women about a role and a task that he has for them. It's part of his plan. It's part of his kingdom. It's part of his design. And if we get comfortable and think, I just show up for Sabbath, or I'll just avoid foods, and he says, cool. But let me tell you what I'm also telling you to do. And that's for many of us who've been around. He says, I've been trying to tell you for a long time, but nobody else knows. I don't know if anybody else knew what Jonah was being told. He's like, I'm just telling you. Well, it's not being blasted on the bulletin board. I know, I'm just telling you, and you're running from me because I have a plan and a calling for you. Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations before you were born. Wow. I have an assignment before I'm born. I already see you in this field. Then Yeshua at the rich man, looking at him, loved him and said to him, one thing you lack, go sell whatever you have and give to the poor. That was a pretty clear command. He says, which other commands? I've been doing the other ones. This is a new one. I ain't heard this one. I know. I'm going to make this really clear. And he couldn't do it. I've heard one brother who was struggling with that, so he was trying to sell everything he had. I was like, he was talking to the rich man. He's not talking to everybody. If he was talking to everybody, Abraham got to give up all that stuff. And Isaac and Jacob and so on and so forth. And Joseph. Solomon for sure. Like, it doesn't make sense. He's talking to him. But it's hard to be in tuned into that frequency to say, what are you saying to me? And there's some things for me that you're going to be speaking to that may not have to do with anyone else. I'm standing up here trying to be faithful to that voice that he keeps like, Brandon. And I'm like, is that good enough? Did they say it good enough? He says, no, I need you to go do it. But, no, I've called you to do a certain work. And we're not finished with that work yet. Matthew 11, but what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I say to you, and more a prophet. For this is the one of whom it was written, behold, I send my messenger before your face who will prepare your way before you. John the Baptist had an assignment that nobody else had. He had a special assignment that he had to be faithful to. My question that I'm going to be asking throughout this is, what's your assignment? What's my assignment? One of the biggest questions that people have asked in this life is, what's my assignment? A man wrote a book called Purpose Driven Life, and they couldn't keep it on the shelves because everybody has such a deep hunger for understanding, what's my purpose? What's my assignment? How am I showing up in this? Yes, I need to give God glory. Yes, I need to, but we also have a specific assignment. What's your assignment? And then next, how am I walking in that assignment? Can you imagine one of the Gershonites saying, that's not really my thing? I'm more of like a Merarite. You know, that's kind of where I wasn't asking you how you feel about this is what I've called you to do. Did you have your hand? And I meant to say embracing.
Was that a Freud?
That was a autocorrect. It says
That was your assignment.
It says embracing there.
that is funny, man. All right, so embracing.
See, there we go.
Okay.
Embracing?
Embracing, is that right? Okay. Embarrassing your assignment.
I mean, you can do that.
You can embarrass your assignment, right?
You certainly can.
If you're a co-founder, you think you want to be a Merarite, that's embarrassing your assignment.
The group needed a laugh.
Thank you. That's where I put that. About this time, I'm like, okay, comedy, we need something right there. Embracing your assignment. Paul understood his assignment. What was Paul's assignment?
Go to the Gentiles.
Go to the Gentiles.
And Romans 15 says, nevertheless, brethren, I have written more boldly to you on some points as reminding you because of the grace given to me by God that I might be a minister of Yeshua, the Messiah to the Gentiles.
Amen.
Isn't that such an exclusive way to run your life? Exclusive means that you're excluding groups of people. How can that be and still be a minister of God? How can you be so exclusive and say, I'm going to the Gentiles? Ministering the gospel of God, that the offering of the Gentiles might be acceptable, sanctified by the Holy Spirit. How is that possible? Why was he so fixated on ministering to the Gentiles?
Because Yahweh gave him that desire.
Well,
Somebody had to do it.
So which one was it? Somebody had to do it or God gave it to him?
yep,
He said, yep.
yep. Well, if you look at what Paul did, you know, to his Jewish brother, to the I guess the Christians of that day,
Mm-hmm.
and God had enough of it, and he said, "All right, come on, boy." Because he knocked him off his donkey.
But did he say, are we extrapolating that, or is that what he said? You're gonna go to the Gentiles?
No, he told him he was going to the Gentiles. He said, "Watch what you're about to suffer for me."
You're absolutely right. The Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard from many about this man, how much harm he has done to your saints in Jerusalem. And here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all who came on your name. This is him struggling. What is this guy? But Yahweh said to him, what? Go, for he is a chosen vessel of mine to what? To bear my name before the Gentiles, kings, and the children of Israel. Yahweh had set him aside for a particular purpose. Set him aside, just like he did with each one of us. He says, I got a use for you. But you know what's difficult about this? Is it seems, at least for me, so exclusive. What about everybody else? What about the other people? But this is how Yahweh's function. He specializes. Not just Levites, not just men, but the Gershonites going to do that. I'm going to get the Merarites. He's going to pick one, yeah.
To me, I look at it as there's a whole lot more Gentiles out there than Jews. Mm-hmm. He had plenty of fish to go fishing for. And there wasn't much competition out there either. It was a field that was ready and ripe. And the other part is it's a niche market.
I like the way you bring that language into there. It's a niche market. Yep. And yep. He has us become masters and specialists in a certain field. To deal with those niche markets. I mean, when you talk like that, Jay, I think of business so much because I spend so much time studying niche market type thinking. With doing YouTube videos and stuff like that, people need to know when they see you, what's your brand, what you represent. You just all over the place, or you have, when you come somewhere, you want to know, I got this. You don't want to go to your favorite channels and they're posting Torah stuff, and all of a sudden they're talking about elephants and like, what is this about a documentary? And it just has no, you're like, I think I'm going to come and get the same, and people want that specific piece. We see it even more in Galatians 2 when it says, but on the contrary, when they saw the gospel, that the gospel for the uncircumcised had been committed to me, as the gospel for the circumcised was to Peter. For he who worked effectively in Peter for the apostleship to the circumcised also worked effectively in me toward the Gentiles. Paul knew his assignment. And James and Cephas and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace had been given to me. They gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship that we should do what? Go to the Gentiles. And they to the circumcised. But you're ignoring people. He said, no, I'm talking to the Gentiles. I've learned that by saying yes to one thing, I was saying no to something else. It took me a long time to learn this lesson. And I've learned if I say yes to everything, I say yes to nothing. Mm-hmm. And Yahweh, in all his wisdom, has created the world and his kingdom and us, and designed us in such a way that you have a role. I have something for you. I gotta just do your thing. And we can be so like, well, what about? He says, I got Paul doing that. I'm going to get Peter doing this. Matter of fact, here's a part that's interesting. Yeshua had an assignment. What was Yeshua's assignment?
To do the will of the Father.
Yep. And how did he do that while he was here? What was his focus?
Teaching people.
Who was his audience?
And proclaiming the kingdom of Yahweh.
Not to everyone.
Preparing his disciples.
Mm-hmm.
They come to the 12 tribes of Israel.
He was looking, listen to what he says. But he answered her not a word, and his disciples came and urged him, saying, send her away, for she cries out after us. But he answered and says, I was not sent, except. He's excluding certain people. I have a goal, I have a mission, I have a specific audience that I'm after. I have a specific task that I was called to do. Even Yeshua, he says, I was not sent for those except the sheep of Israel. If his ministry was that focused, surely I too am given a ministry that says it's this. Seriously, we have a ministry. Do you know what it is? What has he called you to? Who is your audience? What is your message? Because I've tried to preach everything to everyone. He says, no, it's a message to them. This is not the only place he said it, if we're struggling with that, because this is a struggle to see Yeshua so exclusive, so mean.
Mean?
The house, yes, mean. And the spirit of our world today, you never exclude. You never be exclusive and just say, here is what I'm just doing. What about the rest of the people? You always be inclusive. Matter of fact, the big part of the work that I work with now is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The whole work is trying to figure out how can we be more inclusive. We need to position ourselves and change this and change that so we can be more inclusive. If anyone is more exclusive, no, that's old. Here he is saying, I've only come except to these guys. Yeah.
The Bible in total is a discriminatory work.
Yes, very much so.
And being inclusive is being anti-biblical.
Yes. Rule number 1.
The way I looked at it, to be inclusive, you have to lower your standards.
You do.
And
Yes. God's
standards, it takes everything we can to get to his standard on that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Everything about Yahweh is exclusive. First commandment.
No other
I'm God.
gods. I am not.
You don't cancel me out now. I'm done. What you mean there's no? He starts out with exclusivity. You know how many people that kept out of that already just from that first one? You lost me. No one comes to the Father. Hold on now. There's gotta be. He says, no, it's
gotta be an exception.
He's very focused. If it's Matthew 10-12, Yeshua sent out and commanded them, saying, do not go into the way of the Gentiles. Why, you don't love them? No, Yeshua understood his part in the bigger plan, in the picture. He says, and do not enter a city of Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. See, sometimes if I get into the position of overseer, king, God. If I want to be the chess player, I start thinking, what about? No, when you do that, then my kingdom can come the way it's supposed to. Stop trying to play the game. You just play your part. Gentiles, Jews, women, men, young, old, whatever it is, play your part. You have a role, and this is the order of Yah. For it, talking about the kingdom of heaven, would be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. So we see the same thing when he says, I'm going to give 1 5, another this, to another. Each person. Why something different? Because I'm going to give each according to your ability. Got this, you got this, you have an assignment. And they were also rewarded. When he came back, he settled accounts. Did he settle the account with the whole church? And everyone, it says, everyone come in. Let's see how everyone's doing. He says, no, one at a time. I gave you an assignment, Paul. I gave you an assignment, Peter. I gave you an assignment, Ruth and Elizabeth. I gave you an assignment. Let me give an account of the assignment that I gave to you. What you mean an account? I already did the 10 commandments. I followed that, yes, but I gave you one? That's different than, I gave you 3. Were you faithful with what I've given you? His master said to them, well done, good and faithful. The good news is that you can be faithful with that portion that he's given us. Why were each given different portions?
Their abilities.
Yahweh knows.
And his plan.
Yeah.
He knows. Ability. He knows his plan. We make the mistake. If we make his plan so generic that all we do is blend in with everyone else, we just I read the Bible, I sing the songs, I show up, I'm a good guy, I'm a good girl, I'm doing the nice things. He says, yeah, but that's not what I told you to do. Well, nobody's preached about it, nobody's sang about it, nobody's taught me. I told you, you remember that little voice they kept hearing? I'm telling you, get up and go. Or I'm telling you, stop and sit down. Whatever it is, I have a plan for you. Yeah.
What does DIE spell?
Well, actually, that's probably why they don't put it in that order. It's usually DEI. I'm sure they've come across that. We're given the different portions. Why? Because we're all different. His plan needs us to be different. If we get nothing else from this so far, I'm hoping that we see the importance that God has not just a plan for his people under Torah, but he has a plan for each and every single person within his plan. And I'm here today with the message to say, let's make sure we're showing up in that plan. Do I know his plan for me? Am I walking in his plan? What do you want me to do? In addition, yes, there's the basics. Romans says, for by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to what? The measure of faith that God has assigned. That much faith? You got that much faith? And Yahweh, when he calls it back, he knows how to appropriately judge according to the faith. Sometimes we want to look and be like, I'm doing more, he's doing less. I know how to do all that. You're so faithful. God said, you better be in accordance to what I've given you. He's a portion. He knows what he's doing. I don't know why he does it that way. I could, extrapolate and all this stuff, but just give everybody the same amount of faith. That'd be great. Great. Everybody great faith. Everybody great capacity. But there are some people who are not going to have the same measure as you do. Dare I judge them?
They give the participation awards to a lot of people.
Thank you. Because that's their measure. So everyone is different and everyone has a specific role. So I'm jarred when I look at the Levites and just think, just be godly. Sure. But what does that mean for you and me? 1 Corinthians 12, we know this very well when Paul talks about the body. Now there are varieties of gift, but the same Spirit, and there are varieties of service, but the same Lord, and there are varieties of activity, but it's the same God who empowers them all and everyone to each. I'm calling us to think about this now. What is my role? To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. I bolded that right there because I have a discussion I may pick up another time for the common good. Because you've been given your measure of faith. You've been given your assignment, Gershonites, Merarites, Levites. You've been given your assignment but it's not for you. Because a tree doesn't eat its own fruit. The fruit from a tree is not meant for the tree. He says, what I've given you is for the common good. It's to serve a bigger purpose. But as it is, God arranged, look at our Father. He says he arranged the members in the body, each one as he chose. He's like, I'm doing something. And I need you, look, an elbow, knee, toe, I need you to do this because I put you here for a reason. And you're the body of the Messiah and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church first, I got some apostles, some prophets, got some teachers, miracles, gifts, healing, helping, administrate. He says, I'm portioning it all around. I mentioned this a second ago because as we look at all these different gifts, it happens that every once in a while we look over and we see someone not doing their role. Or we're curious about why did you have more or less faith? Why did you have this gift? What about how are you going to be? How's that going to work out for you in the end? And that's why I put this question here. What about them? You ever find yourself saying that to yourself? What about them? Yeah.
What you're supposed to do. If you're taking care of your own business, you're got it covered. You need to be over there helping them. Take care of them. You can't do that until you're taking care of your own.
Amen.
So, and not judge them, help them.
Yeah.
So, taking that from that viewpoint versus probably the direction you were going to go.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, but because the point is the same. Make sure you're showing up in your own space. But this is not we should spend less time and energy thinking about how someone else isn't exercising their talent, their gift, their faith, their thing. Why aren't they? You know what they should be doing? They should be over there and they can't, I don't know why. That's probably not your gift to gossip. It's probably not your gift to criticize. It's probably your gift to just focus on what you need to do really well. And I said many times, if it's the elbow, then you just kind of work on really good. I'm a good bender. I can flex this. Man, I can flex. I'm not a foot. I'm not the mouth. Maybe I can't do the speaking, but I can. Whatever my part is, that's what I'm going to do. But do I know my part? So where am I getting this from? What about them? Who said that?
But that elbow can make that mouth speak. Whack that elbow on the corner of the table. Mouth will speak.
It's not what I want you to say. What's that?
Elephant ears, mosquito mouth.
That's what As we're described to be a body, sometimes that can happen. Where we're like, I need to get this other part to work, and it can become abusive. Like, hey, come on, I need you to, I like what Yeshua said to Peter when he asked that question. You remember when he asked that question?
Feed the sheep.
That's the one. John 21, that's the end of that book. He says, Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Yeshua loved following them, and the one who also leaned back against him during the supper and said, Lord, who is it that is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he said to Yeshua, Lord, what about this man? Yeshua said to him, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? I just love it. If it's my will that he stays here, what that got to do with you? He's making it so clear. This is how he wants us to think. What is that your business? Oh, I wonder what's going to happen to him. He tells another story I remember about the hiring people and someone he hired early. And then he hired somebody later. And then he hired somebody later and they paid him all the same price. And then the people got hired early had what kind of attitude? They said, what in the...
Yeah.
How? Same attitude. He says, didn't you agree to this payment? What does that got to do with you? He says, stay in your boots. I have a job for you. Another man asked him, are many going to be saved? Many people going to be saved? He says, you make every effort. Why do you keep making it about me? Because it is about you. Be faithful to what I've appointed and assigned you to do. Yeshua said to him, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me. You follow me. You, I don't care what's going on in the Christian community, in the church community, and why they're not doing this and they're not doing that. And if they would do their job better, then I could do my job and it's messing us up. He says, I gave you an assignment. Be faithful to your assignment. Well, it's not working. I gave you an assignment.
First things first.
To take the second step, you got to take the first. He told him, feed my lambs. You tend my sheep. You feed my sheep. You follow me. He spends, you notice how much little time he spends talking to people about what they should do? You know what the Pharisees should be doing? He just go tell the Pharisees. He doesn't go, hey, you know what they should. No. I'm talking to the Pharisees, but I'm talking to the disciples. I'm talking to the disciples. It's the same. Sometimes you may see me shift if that conversation goes there. I say, oh, what about us? Where are we? We mentioned this a little bit. What if you say, I don't want to? I don't want to. Does that happen? Does anybody really go against the clear command of God? Clear command of God. And these aren't, I'm not at this point talking about unbelievers. I'm talking about those within the body of Christ who feel that nudge to say, this may be a ministry that's mine. And we start, I know for sure I fought God for so many years, and I'm likely still fighting in some ways that I don't fully see. What are some of the reasons we say?
Open your eyes.
What's that?
Open your eyes.
Me?
He said, I don't fully see.
Oh, okay, open my eyes, yes.
We had a whole lesson on that.
That's right. Just a little bit ago.
How did I miss that? Open your eyes, man. But Yahweh, I don't like my assignment. I've been given assignments for God. I don't like that one. That doesn't fit my personality. I'm not a guy who out in front. I'm not a guy who sits in the back. I'm not a person who Moses, I stutter. I'm not good with see, this is outside of like, okay, 10 commandments. Yeah, but I'm calling you to do something. Mm-hmm.
And early in my career, you always get to start at the bottom. And at that particular time, I got to do all the jobs nobody else wanted.
I like how you keep saying I get to and you. That's good.
And it got to the point, I knew I was getting picked on. I knew I was getting, they had all the glorious jobs, but I got the others. What I did not realize until quite a bit later, of all the different levels of experience that I got to learn, they didn't. Mm. Which opened up new opportunities that they couldn't have. Mm. That to me is what I see when I want to. He's got opportunity for you. He's teaching us something.
Yeah.
And it's going to be awesome if we just put our purse down and go to work.
Yeah, it's going to work out. It's going to be worth it. I think sometimes we forget that this is a kingdom and not a democracy. In the kingdom, the king says, this is where you're a subject. He's always been a king. And he told you up front the prerequisites. Anyone who wants to follow me, Yeshua told him, I don't have a place to lay my head. You sure? Nobody pull the wool over your eyes. If you want to follow me, here's how it's going to be. But now you're in my kingdom. I give you my protection. I give you my power. I give you all these things available. However, you are subject to the king. It doesn't fit my personality. I don't like it. It's not my passion. You know, we're taught today to follow our passion, but what if God is calling us to do something that we're not passionate about? Because there's a lot of stories in the scriptures that show so. And sometimes I believe I and some others may have dismissed a call because we're like, that can't be right because I don't feel it. I'm not passionate about that. That's not my thing. But as you mentioned, Jay, it's so funny how what wasn't your thing became your thing that you're master for. You're known for a thing that you didn't want in the beginning. Now you're known for it.
Yeah.
And you now not only do you enjoy it, it's who you are. It's like, this is, how did you get there? Because God knows what he's doing. It's not my passion. I'm too shy. There are others better than me who can do this. That's one of my favorites.
That sounds like Moses.
It does. I've heard myself say this many times. I always think about somebody else who does it better. I'm like, why me? There's already somebody who does that. As if the world, as if that one person is good enough for 9 billion people. It's like, we got one already. God's like, maybe I need somebody else to do something. I'll get to that later. I'll get to that. I hear you, God. I feel it. I've been hearing that I promise you I'll get to that later. One man says, I got to go bury my father. I'm not trying to, I'm with you. He's about to die. I need to go bury my father. He was bold and says, let the dead. I'm like, whoa. I'll get back to you. But if he says, I'm calling you, trust me. I got basically a better idea. I got a better idea. We're laughing. But I'm the first to say, because I've heard myself say that. I've heard myself say, I've got a better idea. Now, I haven't said it in those words, but because of my argument with him, I'm like, you think your idea is better, huh? And I'm here to tell you it didn't work out well. And I'm not just saying it as a story. I could tell you some story. It didn't work out well. It's embarrassing. Like, what was you thinking?
You weren't thinking.
I wasn't thinking.
Embarrassing your assignment.
There you go. That's where I came there. We tell God I got a better idea. I'm going to do what you say, but here's to make it better. Instead of 12 men, 1,200. That's going to be amazing. No. Hear me out. 1,200. You know the compounding effect 1,200 would have faster than... It's logical. Like, this is going to be great. How many things I could... Oh, this job is paying more, or this go... It's going to be great. He says, you don't know what you're talking about. What is God calling you right now for your assignment? But we're giving him reasons why I can't show up. Some may... Too young. I'm too old. My job doesn't allow. I don't know the right people. All these reasons for why I can't. If I don't want to, we end up being like the guy who was given, but says I was afraid and I hid your talent. I'm not going to give back what you've given me. I want to close in this thought here. We talked about the body and how he's given you an assignment. I want to look at the one thing principle. I love this one thing principle. In a world where we're so busy with so many things and we want to be what they call the jack of all things.
Trades and master
of none. We have this phrase called multitasking. Mm-hmm. When there's really no such thing as multitasking. I thought there was, but there isn't. I think we got that term from the reading I did from computers. Because when you pull up a computer is like, it can do all this stuff at once. But it can't.
It always goes one step at a time.
It does. I thought it was doing all at once, but what it's actually doing, a computer in all its fast operations, it does one thing at a time. It just doesn't really quickly. It just goes doop, doop, doop. It goes. I think when I'm doing the homework, listen to this, I'm gonna do it. He's like, no, you're actually shifting here and then going back here and then going back here. There's a one thing principle. We're given 2 ears to attend to one message. We're given 2 feet to walk in one direction. We're given 2 eyes to focus on one thing. Our whole body is created to do one thing. The words that Yeshua says here, I find so sobering as we look at our assignments. You remember the story of Mary and Martha? Now, as they went on their way, Yeshua entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she said she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching, but Martha was distracted with much serving. That message will preach all day. That is such a strange wording. Martha was distracted with much serving. What is it that sounds so strange about that sentence?
Distracted.
Why would that be strange?
Didn't have to be distracting.
No,
You
her
could-
serving was distracting.
She was busy serving all the time.
Serving is good.
Yes, but if that's all you focus on instead of, the job,
Then it's not
No.
distracting. If you're focused on one thing.
Not
If
the
you're
first
right.
thing first, she was
Yeah.
on something else.
What's the
The
question?
first thing was in her house.
Was that
First thing first, the Lord was there.
Oh,
She
okay.
was serving, and Mary was sitting at Jesus' feet listening to what he had to say.
Right,
She was putting the first thing first.
right. So you're saying Martha,
Can't listen and serve at the same time. Multitasking again.
distracted with much serving. Distraction is not good. We can all agree. Serving
He's good.
is a pretty good thing.
There's no place for it.
I propose from this verse that you can actually be distracted with good things. Good things can become a distraction, because a distraction is I have something that I'm supposed to be doing, that I'm called to do, that I need to do, but it's keeping me from doing it. You see, if he's giving me an assignment, let's say Paul is going to the Gentiles, but he continues to be distracted from that assignment, then that, whatever those distractions are, now are no longer doing any good, because it's keeping him from his actual calling. Serving. And she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve all alone? Or serve alone? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you're anxious and troubled about many things. Many things. Maybe multitasking, but she's troubled. When we start feeling anxious and troubled, we're probably in a space that we don't need to be in. We're probably doing something in a way that we shouldn't be. There's nothing wrong with serving. But she put the first things and the second things in the wrong order. How do we know? Because he says so. He says, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion which will not be taken away from her. You have many things. You're distracted. Distracted from what? What should have been the focus?
The teaching.
Yeshua's here.
Yeah.
I have one thing for you to do. God has given each of us an assignment. And it's easy for us to say, if there's anything that's good, do that. But I would boldly say that I believe that could also be the work of the enemy. Because as long as I can keep you from doing what you're supposed to be doing, then mission accomplished. Because when you do what you're supposed to be doing, the bigger plan comes to place. I saw a hyena kill a lion. You know the relationship between hyenas and lions? It's the fiercest. They can't stand. Hyenas don't even eat lions. They just kill them from. They just don't like the. They can't stand the hyenas. But you know how they killed that lion? It was an awful sight to watch.
As a team.
As a team. And they don't kill them in one bite. They nip and they nip and they nip and they do that really weird laughing. They just keep on nipping and nipping and nipping.
Evil laugh.
It just sounds crazy, don't it? I'm like, okay. It's like I'm laughing at you the whole time. That's pretty good. But it's like the way they're talking to each other. That was a good one. But they would wear that lion out. And when that lion's wore out, it's a downhill fall. I believe that Satan has been effective in wearing down good intentioned believers. He says, I got you now.
Yeah.
He left Yeshua at an opportune time. He says, I'm not, it's too.
He makes you busy, and that busyness distracts you from your real purpose in life.
Right.
Busy is an acronym for being under Satan's yoke.
Ooh.
It's got to be right since it's an acronym now. It's got to be true. If it rhymes or it's an acronym.
Hey, I'm happy to help.
If you think about this. What is one of Satan's powerful fears? Powerful forces is fear. Now we got Martha feeling anxious. Anxious is a fear of an impending doom. Something's going to happen. I'm not going to get finished. Like, how did we get you in that spirit? I got you busy. I got you distracted, didn't I? I never saw it coming. I thought it was going to come in the form of some temptation or something. He says, no. We got some work to do. For God, we need to get you doing this. And then you start hearing us say stuff like, I'm wore out, I'm burnt out, and now I'm bitter, and I'm grieved. He says, yeah, I know. Don't you can't stand it, huh? There's people, they're driving you crazy. He says, now I got you. Distracted.
I thought he was going to have horns and a pitchfork. I didn't see that beautiful,
Yeah.
good looking hunk of
Comes as an angel, or what does it say? Clothed in the angel.
Angel of light.
Angel of light. Here we can help. We got a lot of people you can help. I fall into this trap so many times because I have a good heart, right? I want to help. He says you can. One thing was necessary. What's the one thing that he's needing you to do right now? It's so easy to start picking up. Matter of fact, when I have something to do, you may understand this. When I really have something to do, I need to do. Sometimes I get busy doing all the small things that I don't need to do, but they're nice and they feel good. I go fix that and go clean that and go do that. But I'm not doing the thing I need to do. There's one thing that's necessary. What is your call? What happens to the body when we fail to attend to one thing?
It breaks down.
It hurts.
Entropy.
Entropy begins to set in. The Gershonites didn't do their one thing. The Merarites didn't do their one thing. If the body doesn't stick with that one thing, the Gentiles, the serving with the food or having that conversation and talking, whatever that ministry is, you didn't do your thing. You're so busy. What happens?
Wouldn't David bringing the Ark of the Covenant back be a good example of the Gershonites or Merarites did not do their job? Because remember, they were commanded to carry it on their shoulders, and he put it on a cart.
That would be the Kohaths.
Yeah, he was bringing it back to Jerusalem from the Philistines.
The Kohaths should have been doing it.
The Kohaths, okay.
Yeah. But your point is taken. Like, hey, if you were doing your job, right,
Uzziah would,
the right way, right? Because they're specialists. They should know exactly how it's supposed to be done, right? And you're trying to do something that you're a generalist at, and it's not, yeah. I can see that.
And David was a king. I mean, he was going to look at the king and say, you can't do that.
Right.
I think
But they
he's
should
also
have.
the one that ordered the census too. That hurt a lot of people.
What, 30,000?
David,
Something like that?
David, even though he's a good guy, he still made his mistake.
Yep. And so the thing we're looking at here now is the danger of allowing good things to keep us away from God things.
Yeah.
That's the part that I don't see coming. Good things can take us. We just saw Martha do it. Yeshua confronted it and told us very clearly what was going on. He said, "I see, that's not necessary. One thing, but I gotta. If you see something good, go no. Figure out what's the one thing." Acts 6:1, he says, "Now in those days, when the number of disciples was multiplying, there was a complaint against the Hebrews by the Hellenists, because their widows were neglected in the daily distribution." You remember this story? Why were they being neglected?
Because they were busy.
It says,
They were giving the jobs to their families and totally neglecting.
yeah, I don't know the details, but here's what their solution was, because you kind of get a sense of what was happening. Then the 12 summoned the multitude of the disciples and said, "It is not desirable." Look at this. We're talking about helping widows. "It is not desirable that we should leave the word of God and serve tables." What are you saying? That's beneath you? No. I know my one thing. And God has given me a purpose to do this one thing. And if I start doing this, then I'm way out. Moses was given advice from Jethro to the same tune. He says, "You got one thing. You're trying to do it all." So he can be wiped out. They realize this is not going to work. Therefore, this is what the conclusion was: "Brethren, seek out from among you 7 men of good reputation, full of the Holy Spirit and wisdom, whom we may appoint over this business." It's not that, and I can see there being groups saying, "You're better than us. You can serve, you can do this." Yes, we can. But in order to do is, if I said yes to helping here, I'll have to say no. See, that's what I didn't see for a long time. I thought I was saying yes. He says, no. I told you something. That's for you. But we will give ourselves, look at this, continually to prayer and to the ministry of the word. Because we cannot neglect the word and what we're called to do, and yet we can still meet that need. 2 Chronicles, as Hezekiah got the temple and the worship and everything back in order, he says something to the same tune. Speaking like this: "Moreover, he commanded the people who dwelt in Jerusalem to contribute support for the priests and the Levites." Why? That they might devote themselves to the law of Yahweh. He knew that they needed to be completely devoted to the law of Yahweh. And not, this is not even dealing with sin, like outright, like, "Oh, you're temptation." This is no. You're neglecting your assignment, your one thing. What has he called you to do in this season, in this life? Who's your audience? What's the work? Let us not get enamored by so many good things and service things that we're starting neglecting. He says, "I called you to something." Right now, I'm doing too much. I know I'm doing too much. That's why you see my daughter in training. I'm doing too much. Because but you know what? It keeps me from doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. It's nobody's fault. But it takes away from what he's trying to do. As a personal example. So I'm like, I have to delegate, I have to teach, I have to train, I have to find ways, because I'm being pulled away from the one thing I need to be focused on doing. And I just want to encourage us to think about that as we go back and look at the order. He has an order, he has specific assignments. He said, I just need you to stay in that lane. Not that you can't do anything else, but make sure you're prioritizing what I've called you to do, just like I did with the Levites, and broke them down further. Summarizing, each person has a task of serving. They had a task of serving and carrying. He said, each one, we got a task. Yahweh gives individual instructions we must follow that may not pertain to anybody else. Yahweh apportions to each according to his ability. The parts of Yahweh's body are specialized to better serve his greater purpose. So we may not understand. I know I get frustrated sometimes by thinking, how is this going to help that? He says, don't worry about it. You just do that. Just do this one thing. We shouldn't allow ourselves.
And do it right.
Oh, you trying to make a whole nother lesson. Go ahead. You want to expound on it. That's a good one.
Working with my son a little bit, teaching him to fly on that. And there's just so many things that have to be done. I said, do it, make it right before you start the next task. Make sure that you do that, and then you can do that. But if you try to do them all, but only do them partially, you shouldn't even do it. You've got to do one and do it correctly before you go to the next.
That's good. My Olivia's teacher used to say, do it right or do it twice.
Okay.
She hated that. What'd you say?
It's in the pilot's jargon, do it right or die.
Yeah. I guess that wrong.
Get do-over?
Yeah. A mulligan? Something? Yeah, do it. The parts of Yahweh's body are specialized to better serve his greater purpose. So when we do it, let's do it right. Let's do it with excellence. And that's the exciting thing about being a specialist and having a lane that we can focus on and not trying to spread it out and be generic. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be distracted by Yahweh's from Yahweh's assignment for other, but become experts at understanding our own. I think I wrote this messed up, but I was trying to say we shouldn't allow ourselves to be distracted by Yahweh's assignment that he has for us. By looking at whatever from his assignment from us, because we're looking at everybody else's assignment. Hey, I wish you can do a better job. Can you try? Why aren't they like? Look, what is yours, and how can I become a specialist in this area? There are grave consequences for those who refuse to follow their personal assignments. Just because it seems good doesn't make it godly. We must focus on the one thing he has a portion for us to do. This last part here, I have a whole lesson on because it's so needed and so good that it's so easy to get caught up in good things and not do the godly things. Because nobody checks you on that. Nobody's going to say, oh, it's sin. That's all we look at. But Yeshua can identify, no, you got one thing that's necessary. What are you doing all that for? Because I'm helping. I'm trying to get things ready. No. One thing. Thank you, guys. That's my lesson. Appreciate it. Questions, yeah?
I have one more thing to say, and that was excellent. Every point you made is right on.
Period. Now
And
that's
thank
it.
you.
Ready to go.
But I just wanted to add, as I was reading through these chapters over the last 20 plus years, I used to wonder, why do I need to know what everybody did? Some of these chapters could put you to sleep. But one day it dawned on me that chapters like these are also meant to be like Yahweh's census in a way, not for him, but for them, for the Israelites, because they were slaves for 400 years. They didn't know who they were. They were slaves. They lost their identity. And so when he brought them out of Egypt, he was teaching them again who they were and reuniting them with their ancestors.
I like that.
To speak.
Yeah.
Showing them exactly who they were in
Yeah.
him, what their specific job was.
I like that.
Which leads right back into what you were teaching.
I love that. It's so powerful you say that because I actually wrote on my whiteboard in my office these words that said like this: What if I saw myself the way Yahweh saw me? Because we don't see ourselves in that grandeur.
No.
Like what if, and he's showing, like you said, he's showing us, but what if we saw ourselves like, I see a mighty, like we keep pulling ourselves down. And I got this idea because I was watching a celebrity give a compliment to a fan on how well they sing or play the guitar. And the fan just, oh my gosh, the tears start coming, they're getting flushed and like, oh my God, they saw my stuff. And you could tell that they never really believed they were that good. It took a celebrity, another girl or guy, to come say, now granted, they're respected because they've reached a certain level of mastery and they can see master sees masters. But when the true master told you that you're the light of the world, I didn't believe it. He says you're the salt of the earth. He says you're ambassadors and all these words, and I never claimed it. And I know I didn't because other men and women would say something and you go, I'm like, guys, like I told you that. I told you way more than that. But I think that's really powerful. Going back to the assignment, he's like, you got greatness in you. Look at what I've given you to care for. Look at the space, the lane that you have to do. And we're like, nah, yeah.
Throughout the whole teaching that you had, the symphony just kept on going through my mind and my spirit with every point. And that one specific task that somebody has right at the end of the piece. But the conductor has to keep everybody in unison. But that one little note at the piece, you have one part. Hit the chime once. Ding. And if you don't do it at the right time, it messes up the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it's timing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not the right time.
I like that.
Wait for the right time. You got to train for the whole piece.
Yeah. You preaching a lesson, man. Because there's nothing wrong with hitting the instrument. Like if it was a triangle, ding. There's nothing wrong with hitting a triangle, but you hit it at the wrong time.
Right.
It's not time for that now. You messed up the whole piece. Yeah, we went to a symphony, a few months ago, and it's beautiful. And I'm watching the person in the back with the drums. They got a cup. They get up every few minutes. No, like that's a nice piece. You get paid the same as them. Like so, I don't know how that's working, but it's a beautiful. See, Yahweh knows how it crescendos and how the symphony means like come together. It's like this oneness.
It's a harmony.
And I want to get better about staying in that lane and making sure that's great. Like you said, Jay, I like that too, is mastering this lane and then helping others. Hopefully, like in this space, how can we show up in our lanes better?
Yeah, if you're helping the violins, you might miss that ding at the end.
That's true. You make sure you get yours. Well, I pray that was a blessing. I pray that was a refreshing view and that we can go back and start reflecting on. Because I guarantee you that each one of you have an assignment.
Yeah.
This is so clear in the scriptures. Each one of us has. The question now is, am I walking in it? Do I know what it is and am I walking in it the way he wants me to? Can you see it?
Are you blind?
This is going to keep coming up.
Can you see it?
It keeps moving. I know. He says the spirit is in step. Keep up with me. Love you guys. Let me pray. Father, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for being patient with us in our ignorance, in our blindness. Father, open our heart and our mind that we may see what it is that you're wanting us to do so that, like Mary, we can sit at the feet of your son and say, this is the one thing. It's hard, Father, because you know our hearts, we want to do right. But Father, show us clearly this week, even today, what's the one thing? What's the task that you've given us? That we may fully show up in it and have peace, not trying to move all the levers and the dials of our life, but saying, I'm in the right space, doing the right thing. And we can be faithful with our 1 talent, 2 talents, 5 talents. No, this is what I'm supposed to do. Thank you, Father, for how you can show up as a body. And may we encourage one another in this journey. In Yeshua's name we praise you. Amen.
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 Excellent.
Amen. Amen. Praise Yahweh.